I would like to advise all those present that notice of this regular meeting of May 14th, 2025 has been provided to the public in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey. Notice of time and place of this meeting has been included in the annual notice of meetings, which was posted and filed with the city clerk and with the Jersey Journal and the Star Ledger. An additional notice of time and place was posted and filed with the city clerk and was forwarded to the Bergen Record and Star Ledger on May 12, 2025. The regular meeting of the Municipal Council of the City of Bayonne is now in session. Ms. Medina, please call the roll.
Mr. Booker?
Here.
Mr. Carroll?
Here.
Mr. Perez?
Here.
Ms. Weimer?
Here.
Mr. La Palusa?
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item is an ordinance adopting the redevelopment plan titled Preliminary Investigation and Non-Condemnation Redevelopment Plan, 18-22 East 15th Street, prepared by the City of Bayonne Division of Planning and Zoning for the property located at 18-22 East 15th Street and identified as Block 253, lots 39 and 40, as shown on the official tax map of the City of Bayonne pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law. It was introduced and passed the first reading at the meeting held April 16th, was published in the Bergen Record and posted on the bulletin boards required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 14th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. It's my understanding this is going to be postponed.
Carried, yes.
I would like to move postponement.
Second.
And on the postponement, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
02 is an ordinance authorizing an encroachment agreement with 111 Avenue F Partners Urban Renewal LLC for the property located at 107-111 Avenue F and 86 East 22nd Street, which is identified as Block 456, Lot 7, 8.01, 8.02, 8.03, 9, and 10. It was introduced and passed the first reading at the meeting held April 16th, was published in the Bergen Record and posted on the bulletin boards required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 14th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution giving the ordinance second reading is moved by the council president. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance authorizing an encroachment agreement with 111 Avenue F Partners Urban Renewal LLC for the property located at 107-111 Avenue F and 86 East 22nd Street, which is identified as Block 456, Lot 7, 8.01, 8.02, 8.03, 9, and 10. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
Move.
Second.
On the motion to close, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. '03 is an ordinance adopting the redevelopment plan titled 33-37 East 18th Street redevelopment plan prepared by the City of Bayonne Division of Planning and Zoning for the property located at 33-37 East 18th Street and identified as Block 226, Lot 12, 13, and 14, as shown on the official tax map of the city. It was introduced and passed the first reading at the meeting held April 16th, was published in the Bergen Record and posted on the bulletin board as required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 14th, is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by the council president giving the ordinance second reading. Ms. Weimer, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
Second reading is by title, adopting the redevelopment plan titled 33-37 East 18th Street redevelopment plan prepared by the City of Bayonne Division of Planning and Zoning for the property located at 33-37 East 18th Street and identified as Block 226, lots 12, 13, and 14, as shown on the official tax map of the City of Bayonne. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion
Move
to
it.
close?
Second.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And resolution ordering final passage.
Move it.
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
This eliminates 3 driveways on the street, and I think it's a good project. I vote aye.
04 is an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7. It was introduced and passed the first reading at the meeting held April 16th, was published in the Bergen Record and posted on the bulletin boards required by law, with notice that it would be further considered for final passage following a public hearing at this meeting of May 14th. It is now before the council for its consideration and a public hearing. And a resolution moved by Councilmember Perez, giving the ordinance second reading. Ms. Weimer, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Second reading is by title, an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 7, Traffic. The council is now ready to give all persons interested in this ordinance an opportunity to be heard concerning it. The council president will recognize anyone who wishes to speak. No protest against, objections to, or statements in favor of this ordinance or its passage has been filed with me. May I have a motion to close?
Move.
And on the motion to close, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And a resolution ordering final passage.
Move.
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
Okay, our first speaker is Mr. Perry.
Good evening, Gene Perry, 77A Hobart Avenue, Bayonne. I'd like to bring to the attention of the City Council what possibilities or if anything's happening with property block 359, lot 10.01, also known as 76/80 Hobart Avenue. This property applied for historical grants from the state of New Jersey in 2014 at the Sandy and was denied. They also have a remediation since 2020 on the property, unpaid taxes, and nothing has been done yet regarding the remediation of the property of contaminated water. And now that it's getting summer out again, we're going to start seeing mosquitoes. This was also reported to Tim Boyle and Donna Russo last year with Donna Russo, that the company is also pumping the water out of the building into the sewer system of Bayonne. The sign that was up there from the investigators, which I'll show Ms. Medina in a minute, was removed by the adjacent property owner when they were trying to build their own little retaining wall on a property, which we stopped. So I'm just curious, is there anything the city can do to look at this property as redevelopment, maybe an open air for ground policy or a park or something? Because it's just sitting there, it's been sitting there for at least 20 years doing nothing. Actually, 1998 was the last time the property was used, from what I've had in documents.
Is that the property across from like the Vic? And
That's the property across from the Vic, that's correct. And I have all the documents here for council, I have a copy.
Okay.
But I appreciate their feedback on that, looking into this matter. And also the adjacent property, owned by Bayonne Terminals, is also contaminated and has not been answered yet but to the DEP. And nothing, that property is still up and running on 3rd and 2nd Street, and nothing's being done about it. So does that come to the council or to the state to step in and shut them down? Is my question.
Right. I will have somebody
Okay.
look into this.
Thank you,
and
Gary. I
definitely
appreciate
get you
that, sir.
back with something in writing.
Okay.
All right.
And
you.
there's the documents.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you. Pass them around. Mr. Desmond?
I have to state my name.
Name
Patrick
and-
Desmond, 131 West 4th Street, Bayonne. I'm calling up here for the Airbnb that's next door to me. It's nothing but well, I'm up here to complain, put it that way. Nobody's doing it. I call the cops all the time.
It's on 4th Street, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
133 West 4th. I could start naming names, but I don't want to do that.
No,
And-
but I'm taking notes because I'm going
Yeah.
to follow up with you.
Now, the people that have an Airbnb are supposed to actually, one of them's supposed to actually live there, correct?
Owner occupied, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's not happening. They're renting out, there's 2 floors, they're renting out top and bottom. It's like, the kids that are coming in are saying, oh, everybody knows this is the party house. Oh, it's not the party house. There's a little kid that lives upstairs from me, 2 years old. You know, they don't need to be hearing this nonsense, and I'm sick of it. You know, and then some of them get confrontational with you, which, you know, I got no problem straightening that out, but I'll be the one that gets locked up. So I don't do that, but we need somebody to check that out.
So this is a fairly new program. We didn't want to say totally no to Airbnb, but we limited it. And so everything is subject to change. This is a pilot program. We didn't call it pilot, but that's the way I like to look at it. Because us here, we have the power to change things.
Yeah, there's nobody.
So for right now, we have our planning and zoning have a department that looks after this, and they're taking complaints, and the complaint list is growing, that's for sure.
It's a major problem.
So
It's
we
every
will definitely
weekend.
look into this, and these people do get fined if they're breaking the rules, so we will follow up
They're
with
breaking
you, for
rules.
sure.
Another thing, and I don't know if I'm allowed to talk, but you got a big election coming up here. I hope everybody gets out and votes.
Yep.
About time we start putting the best qualified people in office, instead of putting people in because they're somebody's friend, or who's sleeping with whose drinking buddies they are. Time to start putting people in because they're the best
Well,
qualified
Pat, you know
people.
we don't talk about elections.
No, I understand that.
City government.
You're getting my vote, Jackie, you got that.
All right, Pat, thank you.
All right? Vote for best qualified people.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Mr. Rosigno?
Evening, Mike Rosigno, 42 West 23rd. If you've all been aware of the situation in Hoboken, there were common terns that were nesting out on a large pier coming out off the city. And a developer purchased the pier area, and we're going to build a development on it. And it caused an outrage in the city. People were upset with it because the terns were going to be losing their home. And there was a movement within the city, and the developer promised to he's going to build an artificial reef for them, or a jetty going out, and they'll be nesting there. And the city adopted the common tern as its bird. And it really went through the city as a community project, and everybody was all excited. There's festivals going, you know, people are carving the common tern now and everything in Hoboken. And I'm up here asking for the city council to look at Bayonne bird to be a yellow-crowned night heron. Bayonne is the home, as we speak right now, of 16 nesting yellow-crowned night heron birds. And last year we had 14, so the number's growing. And out of the 14, we accumulated over 42 chicks were born here in Bayonne. Now these birds migrate up from the south. They nest here in the sycamores, and they're scattered throughout the city. And what happened just recently, which made me think about this, was the city, the Public Works, was doing tree trimming. They hired a company, and they're doing really up and down all the streets. People saw the signs, and the citizens got concerned. And they were like, whoa, what's going to happen? And they called Public Works. Public Works, Jackie and Tommy Carter were great. They contacted me, and it shows when she left a message on my phone, I was out at the yellow-crowned night heron nest. The truck pulled up with white flashing lights, a pickup truck, and a guy gets out and starts looking up. And I go walking to him and said, what's going on? And I saw he was a tree coming. He said, I got a call from City Hall. We're looking for the nesting birds. I said, and it was a great response. The city, the fella, I think his name was Bruce O'Brien, the supervisor there was terrific. We told him about the birds, where they are. I showed him around. He said, they're fine as long as nobody's, sitting on top of a transformer, which is, very understandable. And so they avoided all cutting down of the nest and everything. And the birds are doing fine because they're monitored. We go around every once a week, maybe twice a week, to keep an eye on them and the nest and everything. We're finding new nests also. We keep the nest secret. A lot of people in Bayonne know where they are. If you park under them, you will know where they are. And so we're not trying to put out the notice of where they all are, but that if the city could join in and call it the bird, the city bird, the yellow-crowned night heron. And it'll bring community activity, and it's bird watching is a great tourist attraction, and it's, plenty of people look for the birds. It's a big operation in Tecorte Park. So I'd like the city to give it a thought to it and everything, and there's no cost to it. And the most you'll have to do is maybe make a picture, but you probably got wood carvers out here that will start carving yellow-crowned night herons. Thank you.
So, Mike, I don't think anybody spends more time in that park than myself, since I work in the
Yes.
parks. I would say the blue heron is actually more popular in this area than the yellow-crowned night heron, and I have pictures of both, by the way.
It's popular as a size, but not as plentiful.
I've seen more of them than the yellow-crowned
No,
night
well, you're not getting out at the right time. They're all over the yards. People have pictures of them sitting on their windshields, the immatures, after they nested. And, poking around and everything. People will tell you stories about them in the yard. And you see them all over the park pulling the worms out and stuff. You go to Bayonne Nature Club website, the Facebook page, and people have pictures of yellow crowns all the time. And if everybody's wondering what they look like, just Google yellow-crowned night heron. You're going to get a beautiful picture of it. You're going to go, that's what that bird is. And while I'm here, this Saturday, 9 a.m., the Bayonne Nature Club will be doing a cleanup at Rakowski Park, which is a nice favorite spot for the yellow crowns to feed and eat. And it's free for volunteers to come on out. Sticks are available, gloves are given out, and water. So just help clean up the waterfront in Bayonne and make this a wonderful, wonderful place for the birds and for its inhabitants of people. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I saw 2 blue herons yesterday in the park about 8:30 at night. Okay. And they seem to like that one area, if everybody knows where the Tim O'Donnell plaque is, by the turf field. It's right to the right of that, kind of adjacent by the track there. Yes. And they love those trees over there as well, so.
The pond is like a banquet hall.
Yeah.
A giant goldfish.
You're right. And I see egrets, we've seen all kinds of different animals in the park. You'd be surprised what you see. We saw a baby coyote one time even over there, so. Anyway, but we will take that into account. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Moving forward, 05 is for introduction. It is an ordinance authorizing and approving Title 39 rights in accordance with the New Jersey NJSA 39:51-1 for the Bayonne Luxury Water Walk LLC, also known as Bayonne Luxury Water Walk Urban Renewal, to enforce traffic and parking violations on the public access road parking area for the property located at 219 West Fifth Street, which is identified as Block 301.01, Lot 1.01, as shown on the official tax map, and a resolution fixing June 18th as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. It's moved by the Councilmember Perez. Mr. La Palusa, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
06 is an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances, Chapter 17, property maintenance, and the resolution moved by Ms. Weimer, Councilmember Weimer, fixing Wednesday, June 18th, as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. Mr. Booker, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
7 is an ordinance amending and supplementing the revised general ordinances of the City of Bayonne, Chapter 15, and building and housing, and a resolution moved by the Council President fixing Wednesday, June 18th, and it's the time and place for a public hearing and final passage. Mr. Booker, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Aye. Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
08 is amending Chapter 7 Traffic, and it is for restrictive parking zones. It's adding 3 and deleting 4. And a resolution fixing Wednesday, January 18th as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. It's moved by Councilmember Weimer. Mr. Booker, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
09 is amending Chapter 30, Stormwater Management, and a resolution fixing Wednesday, June 18th at 6 p.m. as a time and place for a public hearing and final passage. It's moved by Councilmember Perez. Mr. La Palusa, will you second?
Second.
And on the resolution, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
And communications is a resolution moved by the council as a whole to receive the following communications, for the following communications to be received and filed. It covers C1 through C12. Any questions on the communications? And on the communications, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
And officers' reports is a resolution ordering the following officers' reports to be received and filed, and any resolutions incorporated within to be adopted. It covers OR1 through OR4. Any questions on the officers' reports? And on the officers' report, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
And resolution moved by the council as a whole, ordering the following resolutions to be adopted. It covers CR1 through CR24. Any questions on the consent resolutions?
Yes, CR8.
Any other questions? Okay, so on the remaining consent resolutions, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
CR8 is opposing the state of New Jersey's proposed legislation that permits accessory dwelling units.
Councilman, so the order, the legislation pending in front of the state of New Jersey came out of committee, basically would take away the city's powers under the municipal land use law, and by right would permit an accessory dwelling unit, so a shed, as livable space. So what we're asking, in accordance with the League of Municipalities, which this request is coming from, that since we're a member, that all the memberships, because it did advance from committee to start the process from this, have a resolution opposing this legislation, and again, have the rights remain within the municipality governing, people living in a shed.
Understood, and I could see where in a different town that's more spread out, this would be a kind of a no-brainer, especially because one of the requirements is it has to be a relative living there, so this would essentially be,
No, there's no relative requirement. This
according
is,
to what I read. This is for the elderly aunt or the grandma who can't afford to live anywhere else.
no, this is anyone that wants to rent out the shed. That's what the state legislation is asking for. There's no elderly, requirement for this. This is any and everyone. If you have a habitable shed of 300 square feet,
Right.
you can rent that out.
Really?
With no other requirements to install plumbing.
They will have to do that, but the municipality has no say in denying that from a zoning perspective.
Director Skillender, somebody asked me a question today about the impact on taxes, property taxes.
Well, the tax
If
assessor,
this was to pass, what would be the impact?
they would have to, that would be the tax assessor's job to reassess the property if, they're gaining more money from that, of renting it out. But, even just also with having, another livable space there, if you, family members, all right, having it, in a shed, like, this takes away really the control and the power from the municipality to govern over this. It does, it doesn't deal with our utility, infrastructure issues. It doesn't deal with parking. It says you have to, if you have the ability to have a shed there, and you can put a shed there as an accessory dwelling unit, which we prohibit in our current zoning, there's nothing the municipality can do to stop that.
And it takes away our right to require certain things?
No, they still have to require, under the building code to have a habitable space, but we, purposely said, we don't want accessory dwelling units in town. That's a strict prohibition on that. You have one building, one lot, for livable space.
And this is actually the opposite of how usually the local law can actually be tighter than, say,
Yeah.
the state or the federal. That's why I am in favor of this, but,
We can be tighter than the state law. We can
I know,
assert
but I'm
our
saying-
own restrictions on it, correct?
No,
this is
the-
saying
the-
you're giving the state as a right, kind of,
The state takes the right away from the municipality.
That's
The
what I'm
state
saying.
grants us the power to, have control over that, and it's taking the city's zoning rights away.
so that's what's out of the norm, is what I'm saying.
Again, while it allows it, we still have the right to impose restrictions on it.
No.
We have no
That's,
right.
that's what the,
Someone
that's
can
what the
move
state
in-
legislation's, Council, that's what the state legislation's taking away. They are taking our right to control that. That's why we're asking that there, instead of a letter of support that we've normally done, we're doing a resolution in opposition of this legislation.
Right, and the towns that do want to control it more can still do on their local level, can still make a little stricter law.
Understood. It pains me because I don't want to close yet another door to some affordable option in this town when we haven't opened a window yet. But I understand the situation, and it poses more problems than it solves.
Look, even from a fire safety perspective, the ventilation, you have one exit, entrance on it's, our general lot size is 25 by 100. You have a house on there that's taken up. This is putting, a shed basically in the backyard for, someone to live in. That's without dealing with the parking, without dealing with the infrastructure,
All right. Anyone else?
You're okay to vote on it?
I'm okay.
Madam Clerk, I have two questions. I did not turn the page. CR 21 and 23, if she's present, can we have the UEZ coordinator come up and explain a little bit about these resolutions? We approved something last month in terms of the cameras on Broadway, and she's also going to come up and give us a little insight so the public can understand what's going on with the monies.
Council President, you're good with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Ms. Farber?
Is there going to be action on,
But we've already voted on those.
No, we voted on it, but you have to vote on 8, but you can listen
Oh,
to Ms. Farber.
no, right, but we voted on 20 and 21 that
Right.
she's speaking on now. That's what I meant.
We can go back to our 8 when Ms. Farber is done.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. So CR 21 and CR 23 are just the events that I'm submitting applications for the car show that's going to be held on the Uptown area to highlight the Uptown businesses. And Bergen Point Fall Festival, which is a town favorite that highlights our first ward, and obviously our tree lighting, which is very always successful to highlight the second ward. Obviously, when we do these programs and these applications, is to highlight the city as entirely and the businesses around there. Last week, I submitted the application to submit to the state for security cameras Phase 2. We did Phase 1. This will be at $453,000 with an additional first $400,000 of the cameras on Phase 1. These cameras will be a total of 22 of them and 14 new ones and 8 of them to be upgraded. With this application, we will be highlighting and securing all of Broadway, every inch of it, protecting our businesses and the employees that we want to be working in the city of Bayonne. So I am very happy that I'm able to submit this application and work with the police department. For the second application, it's going to be for $820,000. This is to improve the side streetscape on Broadway on 5th to Cottage, and on East 18th and East 22nd on Broadway. This will also help make sure that our businesses have a clean area and a good, secure walkway for their patrons to go to their businesses. When we do these services, it's to help the city with the infrastructure, so then that will then help the businesses flourish and obviously bring employees to stay and work in Bayonne. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you to the council to allowing me to submit these applications, because it's my pleasure. This has definitely helped the patrons in the city. And on that note, for anybody who's watching the city council, if you're a business owner, please try to attend May 22nd on the Bayonne Museum at 2 o'clock. It's for the 5-year plan. By you attending this will help us allocate the funds for the 5-year plan that's going back to you and the business and the infrastructure here in Bayonne. Thank you.
Jackie, one other thing, just a suggestion.
Yeah.
I don't know when you're going to give the dates out. Last year I had a conflict. I really wanted to come to the car show and couldn't. So the quicker you get your date out, the quicker, if I'm having an event, I can kind of work.
Sure.
around it. All
So
right,
that's all hoping that my 5-year plan will be finished, and then they can release our funds. But I'll definitely let you know and let the council know the dates for all of these events. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, thank you.
And Madam Clerk, thank you. I was turning the page and I wanted the general public to understand, so when we're voting on these things, they have a better insight on what exactly the UEZ is doing and what's going on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now back to CR8. Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Reluctant.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R1 is approving the.
Excuse me, we got somebody, you want to make a comment on,
I want to answer the
is this
question.
on CR8 or?
No, it's actually on 21, 22, and Ms. Farber just spoke about.
Okay.
I do have one question. I appreciate UEZ's doing all this work to beautify Bayonne. We all agree on that. But what happens when the pavers that we put in a few years back start to come up? Are the property owners being contacted to replace those pavers? Because my understanding, the agreement is, once the pavers are in there, the property owner is in charge of replacing any pavers or pavers that have been removed. And I know we spoke once before, Jackie, but I see more and more as I'm walking Broadway every day.
Yeah,
And
so
it's frightening.
once, UEZ is only assisting.
Yes.
So once we do the work, it's the business and the properties owners to fix it.
Okay.
So we're just saying, hey, we're giving you this, and it's your responsibility to keep the upkeep.
Maintenance.
So my question is, Tommy's department's already hearing from me. Who do I contact when I see this? So they can go after the property owners to replace it? Was downtown by Fifth Street, by the barber shop, Mona Lisa, are all bad shape?
Well, that's all being, going to be redone. That's
Okay.
part of the sidewalks,
Right.
streetscape, that program.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
But whose department would be, going forward though, 5 years down the road now, what department would we contact when there's a problem with those pavers? It's obviously not your team.
No.
But would we speak to, Madeline, or council?
Well, under the new plan, we're going to be eliminating all of those pavers on the sidewalks. We're just going to put in all new sidewalks, because it becomes a burden on the business owner or homeowner, because they have to try to find the pattern that matches, and they never can.
So we're going back to cement?
So
Yes.
we'll go back to cement.
Problem solved.
And stay cement.
Thank you, Director.
And then it's on the business owner.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice and clean.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
So R1 is approving the temporary emergency appropriation number 5 in the calendar year 2025 budget. It's moved by Councilmember Booker. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On the resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye. Did you have a question, sir?
CR8, I'm not sure if the council already voted. Is it too late to ask the question?
You could come up, it's all right. We did just vote on it, but.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Maybe it's still a helpful clarification. My
Sure.
name is Miso, 42 West 27th Street. I just want to understand, because there's some use of allow versus restrict, and in the language here it says to permit accessory dwelling units. So I'm just wondering, was the point of consensus about taking away control from the municipality, or is it more about the council's stance about the dwelling units? Because I think that's just two different issues. that, yeah, I'm curious about,
So there are like sheds and people have like other buildings in their yard on the
Yeah.
same property. And the state wants to make it where you can proclaim that a living unit, like a livable space. Whereas a shed really is not a livable space. If I have a shed in my yard, which I do, has no running water, has no sewer pipe or anything like that, nobody could really live in there. But we want to have control on the local level. I'll let Mr. Skillner explain it. Maybe he's a little more eloquent than I am.
just because to your
but,
question,
you
it's
know.
like, so the state allows this use, but can Bayonne then
The state
add
wants
regulations
to-
for requiring
The
plumbing
state wants to
and?
take the local restrictions, like we can place our own restrictions just for Bayonne, this body can, but they want to take that away and make it one rule for the whole state.
Yeah, so I'm just, bear with me one moment, I'm just trying to find the email from the League of Municipalities, and I'll
And then, you know,
read that out loud.
Like Mr. Carroll said, if you live in a rural area, he could see how that could be considered different.
Yep.
Whereas in our city, a shed is a shed. Some of those sheds out in the rural areas could be like another carriage house or something like that, you know.
Just because what I'm curious about is, like, I understand this can increase the housing supply, especially affordable housing supply, but then if it's about that permission, and then Bayonne can set their regulations for what it requires, what quality has to be there, or if it's about the state then saying you can't no longer regulate that?
Yeah.
That's
And
one thing,
people
but
on the
housing
local
availability, it does matter, though, so
People
that's
on
why
the
I'm.
local level can still come and try and change, if you had something large and you wanted to change that to a livable space, it would be heard on one of our board meetings. So there's still an option for that. But we don't want the state to have full control and us have no control over it.
Okay, I understand, thank you.
So that's what we were saying, that this is, we're basically writing a letter to the state saying we're not for what they're proposing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So Council President, so the email from the New Jersey State League of Municipalities, basically in their summary, they go, the legislation would prohibit municipalities from restricting the development of an accessory dwelling units and establish the criteria for such developments. ADUs will be permitted as of right if the ADU is used or intended to be used by the property owner, family members, or non-paying guests. And then it goes further into, within 90 days of the bill's enactment, municipalities would be required to adopt an ordinance incorporating the provisions that, of the bill. The ordinance must provide that, one, ADU may be developed on a lot upon which a single-family dwelling or two-family dwelling is a permitted use, unless municipal ordinance zoning permits development of accessory dwelling units at other locations. Just us on a note on that, because we banned that entirely, you know, we would have, if this legislation is adopted, our single-family, two-family homes, we would have to reconsider our ADU prohibition. It then goes, the ADU must contain at least 300 square feet of complete independent living facilities per unit. 3, the height of the proposed ADU must not exceed the height of the primary dwelling. 4, an ADU shall not be closer than 5 feet from the lot line. The next prong, the ADU may provide direct exterior access that is separate from the direct exterior access of the primary dwelling unit. The next one, additional off-street parking for an ADU shall not be required. And then the last point, they're saying the installation of fire sprinklers shall not be required within an ADU that's within an existing, or, the installation of a fire sprinkler shall not be required in an ADU that is within or an extension to a pre-existing primary dwelling that is not required to install a fire sprinkler.
So bottom line is, we want to make sure that we keep the control in Bayonne
Yeah.
for what we have.
It's a piece whose heart is in the right place, but in execution, it creates more problems. To your point about increasing the availability of affordable units in town, call my office, I'll talk to you about the 3 things I put forward that hit a dead end, but we need to do something. So I reluctantly said no to this, but it's because it's, like I said, the heart was in the right place, the execution was poor.
Thank you for the clarification.
R2 is awarding a contract to Zenith Construction Service, Inc. for Phase 3B of the waterfront walkway at the Peninsula at Bayonne Harbor in an amount not to exceed $2,400,000. It's moved by the council president. Ms. Weimer, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R3 is designating 734-756 Broadway, which is identified as Block 140, lots 2, 56, 57, 58, 59.01, 60, 61, and 62, as shown on the official tax map of the city as a condemnation area in need of redevelopment. It's moved by Councilmember Perez. Mr. Booker, will you second? Second. No hands. And on that resolution, Mr. Booker.
I get a little bit more clarification on this definition.
So we actually have somebody from McMahon, Scotland and Bauman here, Jessica, and we asked her to speak for both R3 and R4.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jessica Almeida from McManaman, Scotland and Bauman, and we serve as redevelopment counsel to the city. So the two resolutions, R3 and R4, which are before you tonight, they're the next step in a series that was set off last year when we referred parcels of land to the planning board for them to investigate whether or not they qualified as an area in need of rehabilitation. The planning board's planner, Beacon Planning Board, investigated each of them and looked to see which of the statutory criteria these properties met, and if they did so, were able to be declared an area in need. So I believe in November, the planning board voted that both of them qualified as an area in need of rehabilitation, and the resolution before you tonight is the next step that will make them an area in need of redevelop. And then following that, the next step would be to adopt a redevelopment plan, which would then set the zoning and the standards for the areas.
So part of the action tonight here really is just evaluating, like what we've done in the past with other area needs, whether or not it meets the, enumerated criteria of A through H. The one difference here is whether or not we're preserving within the redevelopment plan the power of the city to have condemnation powers. Tonight's action, we are not, condemning people's property at this point. We're just preserving the city's, power and ability in the future, if we so decide, that it will have condemnation powers. In the past, we have done non-condemnation. I think it's a little bit easier for everyone. In this case, there's a couple, I think, extraordinary, circumstances here. The biggest one is clearing up the title on the property. One of the properties is subject to an IRS lien to the tune of $18 million. There was also demo liens owed to the city for $200,000. So part of it is, we want to make sure that the city,
So that's for R3, but there's also IRS lien
on
Yeah,
R4.
on
yes.
R4 as well.
R4 as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, the action tonight is the one of, the first of numerous steps. We still have the redevelopment plan to have the planning board draft, look at, have a hearing, refer to the council, normal process of the two hearings of introduction and adoption, and then we have the negotiation of the redevelopment agreement and then developer designation. If it does come to the fact that, again, you could also switch your vote and in the redevelopment plan of you think, condemnation's appropriate now, but you get to the redevelopment plan and say, I don't feel comfortable, that's well within your right to do so.
And Director Skillender, just correct me if I'm wrong. So this process started well over a year ago.
Yes.
I believe Jessica said about a year ago. It's been quite some time, but explain to me the steps, because I know that I asked for a couple of steps in between before we got to even this point.
Yeah.
And the steps that we took, because one, the person requesting the area in need study is not the landowner.
Yes.
And so what I want to make certain is that the landowner was given every opportunity to resolve the issues and to negotiate those liens with both the IRS, with the city, with all necessary parties before we would choose to move forward without them being an interested party to this action. And while they're an interested party by default, they are not taking part in the action. So I just want to make certain that
Sure.
we have availed ourselves to every possible solution and afforded them every possible solution to make this situation right.
So this actually starts back in 2021, when the property owners were contacted about the potential for their properties to be bought. And around that time is when the IRS tax liens on the property were discovered. And in order for those to be satisfied, the property would have to be sold. And the proceeds of the sale would go to pay off those tax liens, as well as the $200,000 that is owed to the city.
And this, assuming that the city gets to that point where we then would take possession of your property and we would sell it, quote unquote, on your behalf. First of all, we purchase it from you. Am I correct? We don't
Yes.
just take your property.
So
Just
in a condemnation procedure, it's a whole separate procedure that you have to go
Yep.
through. And it starts at this point where we're designating it with condemnation powers. Following that, there's something called a bona fide good faith negotiation with the property owners. And the city is required to get a fair market appraisal of the property, and it's presented to the property owners. They have to work with the city and try to negotiate. And there's a period of time, it's usually 2 weeks, but it can be extended, but it's at least 2 weeks, that everybody has to sit together and try to resolve this. Following that period, then you can have an action for condemnation, exercise your rights. But that's so far away from right now.
Correct. But assuming we get, right, but because this is the first step in that
Yeah.
process, I want to make certain that we all know. So assuming we get to that point, those funds are then held in escrow. They're not ours. They're certainly
Well,
not theirs.
it's
but-
even, sorry to interrupt, but it's even with, held by the court. So it's not just,
The court.
it's not,
correct.
it's not that it's held in escrow, it's the court is acting, reviewing the file, reviewing what the city actions have done, whether we followed the letter of the law, whether
Right. Yep.
proper notices were provided, whether, all the property owners, were given the opportunity to negotiate with the city, whether or not, fair market value was given.
Right.
And it's at that point then that the court would act as the escrow agent, but it's, again, because this is a judicial proceeding, they're the ones also making that determination and reviewing the actions that the city
And
has
then
done.
ultimately approving it.
Yes.
Okay.
And you did mention notice. So every step along this redevelopment designation, all property owners within 200 feet of the lots have been noticed for both the planning board public hearing as well as when this is designated, or if it is designated, I'm sorry, notices will then go out again to all the property owners that are in the area.
Obviously, up to and including that landowner.
Yes.
I appreciate you clarifying the steps that would occur from this point forward, but would you crystallize why this was put forward as condemnation and not area in need of non from the beginning?
Yes, so when you designate an area, you have to choose at that point, at the very first step, whether or not you're going to go non-condemnation or condemnation. And I think the property owner, they have not tried to negotiate, and these properties are, as you've seen in the studies, are definitely in areas of
So what you're doing is
redevelopment.
setting the stage for your next several steps in order to exercise your ability to exercise eminent domain.
You're signaling the
should
city's
need-
intention from the beginning.
It doesn't mean that that is what's going to happen. It's just you have to make a choice. Otherwise, if you get all the way to the process where you have a redevelopment plan and now you don't have the power of eminent domain, you have to go back to the beginning of the
start again.
process and start over. And as you've seen, this process has taken some time. It started last summer, and now we're here in May. So it's, at the outset, that was when the choice was made to
This actually started 2 summers ago. I was very vocal, being the third ward councilman, where both of these properties for R3 and R4 are. And I keep going back to the M&M's property, which was on 19th Street, is now a park, but it's sat fallow for 30 years. And so this property, the first one, was holiday tree and trim is the majority of it. There was fruit markets and different things along that whole corridor. And it's been sitting fallow now for, I don't know how many years, 12 years or so, 15 years, whatever. And we wanted some action being done by the property owner. So the letter went out, we adopted a resolution July 19th, 2023, to have our Director of Planning, Mr. Skillender, send a letter to the owners. So having said that, I, along with everybody here, was in agreement that we wanted to exhaust every single possibility before we went to this stage of condemnation. And so, even if they came back to us with a different action, I have a planner, I'm gonna develop it myself, or I'm gonna sell it, whatever they wanted to do. I've been in contact with some of the people, the developers and attorneys that say that they keep coming back with different offers, they've upped the offers. I want some action done, and I cannot see this sitting fallow for 30 years, and that's my vision in this. This is such a viable business district right on Broadway, and that's unfortunately what I keep seeing in my head, is that this huge, it's probably 2/3 of a city block at this point.
Yeah.
Sitting empty.
So, Council President, just to kind of reiterate, some of your points from that resolution, the letters were sent out, certified mail. There was a response back from the property owners via email on December 1st, 2023. With that, again, part of this is, while the city's trying to stay out of a private matter, knowing that, there, without government action here on this, you're right, that property is going to sit afoul. And also to make sure that our interest in securing that $200,000, back,
Right.
we got to make sure, we have at least take some steps to, preserve and protect our rights.
I agree.
Over the IRS.
Excuse me for interrupting you, and I'm still hoping that this will cause some action, that it will not have to go to condemnation. So I just want everybody to know that I'm trying to do this so that it usurps condemnation.
I think it's we.
Exactly, we.
And Director, just jumping in, I know when this process started, and most people up here on the dais did, being a representative on the planning board, when we agreed, I just wanted it to be stated and clarified for myself and the general public, people that are watching, that they understand the condemnation. This is just a process of moving it forward, again, to repeat it. And the fact of the matter is, we've exhausted every resource. It's not my place, the owners, I am not the owner, I have no interest whatsoever, but we've done everything we can and getting no responses in a positive sense. So this is just to move everything forward.
Yes, and again, part of it also too is they will still have the opportunities, going forward. This is the start of, another probably year-long process. It's going to take, just for the redevelopment plan, we got to draft it, make sure it, is buildable, economical, the city council likes it, so there's going to be input on that, but that has to go in front of the planning board. Then there's an introduction, like we do with every ordinance here, then the second hearing, so even on a good day, that's still 3 months out. So this is not, a quick process. This is done open in public, to make sure that everyone's on board with, this, rare action, that the city, would entertain.
Thank you for that clarification.
And to echo the council president, the studies that were done took into consideration the length of time these properties have laid vacant. And for example, Block 140, the building was boarded up in 2015 and demolished by the city in 2018 for health and safety reasons. So it's been a decade.
10 years.
Yeah.
So again, well, hopefully this will cause some action.
So on R3, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
I've consistently, since the condemnation, been against it. I'm against it tonight. I vote no. I respect the council president's opinion, and I understand he wants to see something nice there. He doesn't want to see a hole for 30 years. But of all the reasons to exercise this awesome power public health and safety and so forth. I think this is not the appropriate use of it. And that area, there's a lot that goes into this, and I'm uncomfortable with it. I vote no.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer?
I guess I too do think that we have exhausted every avenue, and we have given the current property owner every opportunity to at least make a good faith effort in getting this issue resolved. And it has, and it was all for naught, quite honestly. And I too were one of the individuals that pushed that forward to go to those extra efforts and to give that significant extension of time. And with that, I vote aye.
Mr. La Palusa?
Again, just echoing what I said before, we've given them every opportunity we possibly could, and even after this is over, they have another opportunity to do some sort of action. So I'm hoping that this will get them to that point. We did absorption studies showing that 96% of the apartments are full at this point. So I understand the need for moderate to low, or affordable housing. But a lot of people are making the argument that we're already at that rate of affordable housing. So I respect everybody's opinions, even if they differ from mine. I understand there's an argument on both sides. Our argument is that we've done everything possible, and I don't want to see the land be fallow for another 30 years, and I vote aye.
Okay, R4 is designating 11-13 West 47, 973-975, 979, 983, and 987 Broadway, which is identified as Block 70, lots 19, 20, 21.01, 23, and 24, as shown on the official tax map of the city as a condemnation area in need of redevelopment. It's moved by Councilmember Booker. Mr. Perez, will you second?
Second.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R5 is endorsing a conservative easement between Bayonne Luxury Water Walk LLC and the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for the property located at 219 West 5th Street, which is identified as Block 301.01, Lot 1.01, as shown on the official tax map of the city. It's moved by Councilmember Perez. Ms. Weimer, will you second?
Second.
Question.
On this easement and everything, is this in respect to the walkway?
Yes. Yeah, this is for the Hudson River Walkway, so the developer on this property, it has to submit an easement request to DEP for Tidelands, and we're just asking for an endorsement of that easement for them to build the walkway on the Hackensack River, Newark Bay side. So unlike the Hudson River Walkway side, which is authorized by statute, this has to follow a different process.
Okay, very good. Will this be going, well, actually, it's Amazon, no. So this will just be the Fifth Street area? It won't, will be connecting to the A&P area? Or-
Eventually, it will be. The plan is for that to have the walkways connect around the film studio to the walkway by Brady's Dock. It will connect behind Amazon. For this portion, it's the Nasarima site here. So with that coming up for development, one of their conditions of resolution compliance is to get this endorsement submitted to the DEP for it, and then, to connect A&P to Boatworks up to 16th Street. So, it's a big effort on that. I know it's piecemeal here, but the developer's responsible to build this as a requirement for their site plan approval.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on R5? On that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R6 is authorizing and directing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a temporary construction easement agreement, a sewer easement agreement, and a license agreement with the Bayonne Luxury Water Walk for the property located at 219 West Fifth Street. It's moved by the council president. Mr. Carroll, will you second?
Second.
Any questions? On that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R7 is authorizing the preparation and execution of a license agreement with 111 Avenue F Partners Urban Renewal LLC for street furniture, bike racks to be installed in the right-of-way in connection with the development of 107-111 Avenue F and 86-92 East 22nd Street. It's moved by the council president. Ms. Weimer, will you second?
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R8 is authorizing the purchasing agent to purchase mobile surveillance cameras for the police department from SHI in an amount of $229,401.69 through the NJCPA contract CK 0424-38. It's moved by Councilmember Weimer. Mr. Booker, will you second? Second. On that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R9 authorizes the purchasing agent to purchase two 2025 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles for the use by the police department through the Bergen County Co-op CK04 bid BC bid to 2443 in the amount of $87,726. It's moved by Councilmember Perez. Mr. Booker, will you second? Second. On the resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R10 is authorizing and providing for the issuance and the sale of not to exceed $109,000 bond anticipation notes and $3,200,000 special emergency notes of the City of Bayonne, County of Hudson, New Jersey, to the Hudson County Improvement Authority, and determining various matters in connection therewith. It's moved by the council president. Mr. Booker, will you second? Second. And on R10, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R11 is authorizing the purchasing agent to purchase two 2025 FPIU patrol vehicles from East Coast Emergency Lighting, Inc., through the Wheeling, New Jersey State Contract 17 Fleet 0076 in the amount of $50,196.37. Would like to move it.
Move it.
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R12 is authorizing the purchasing agent to purchase one 2025 F-250 4x4 Super Cab with the emergency equipment from Winter Ford through the Bergen County Co-op Contract BC 24-43 in the amount of $97,099.99.
So moved.
Second.
And on that resolution, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
R13 has been withdrawn. R14 is awarding the construction contract for the first phase of the lead service line replacement project to Sugar Property Services, Inc., for an total amount of $8,628,080.
So moved.
Any questions? Nothing? Okay, on R14, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll.
Aye.
Mr. Perez.
I just want to ask one question. Mr. Skinner, is he here?
Is that?
I think he just stepped out.
Ms. Kavanaugh might be able to answer.
Ms. Kavanaugh?
Yeah. For the lead replacement line?
Oh, he's here.
Okay.
Joe?
But it's actually municipal services.
On the lead line.
John Armstrong.
John Armstrong, engineer for municipal services. This project is a state mandate. It started in, we're in the third year of a 10-year program. We have to have this project finished by state mandate by July 22nd, 2031. This first phase, altogether, there's 12,276 connections, water connections. Out of those, there's 2,419 lead service lines. There's 1,418 non-service lines, and there's just over 8,400 unknown lead service lines. We have to replace the lead service lines, and the identified one for this first year, this first project, there's 960 under this first phase of the contract with Shorga Group. So we now have, all this has to be completed, as I say, by July, by state mandate, by state law, has to be finished by July 22nd, 2031. It's a big item, big problem. And it's been difficult, to organise this, because all this work has to fit in with repaving projects, and thanks to our Public Works Department, we've had to work very closely with them. So the work we have to do, it will involve some excavation in the streets, and we have to make sure that work goes ahead before we do the repaving project. So it's a real balancing act. So a little else I can tell you about it. The project requires, in the area of the 960 we'll do on this first phase, it requires digging a small trial pits, and that's to determine which is actually a lead service line and which isn't. So, because some of these water connections, they go back 150 years, so we don't know. So it means digging a lot of little holes, basically, to determine what's lead and what isn't. So,
Mr. Armstrong, one second. So, Juan, did he answer your question? Or
Yeah. No, but I have a question. The question is that the company that you gave it to, they were put out for bids?
yes,
And they were the lowest?
they were.
Okay.
Yes.
And do they have a track record?
Yes, they are. Yeah, they've got a good track record. The Shorga Group.
Sure.
Yeah, Shorga. Yeah,
Track record?
they got a very good track record. They do a lot of emergency repair work around the state for other municipalities. And they've got a very good reputation.
I just have one. When you begin the process of doing these boreholes in various areas of the city, could it be anywhere at any time, or are you working in stages? Like,
Oh no, it's in specific stages. It's identified, because we've had to work very closely again with the other departments, particularly Public Works, to make sure that we're not digging up streets that are newly paved. So a lot of the work is in the central part of town. This first phase, it's basically down parts of Avenue E and Broadway. More on the southern end of the city.
And could you ask that as each phase begins in each section, the council is notified, so that we can, when the calls inevitably come in, what's going on in front of my house? We're not
Absolutely.
caught short. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
even if you have even a small schedule of what you're going to do in this phase?
We can provide the council with a drawing which identifies the area for this first phase. I can send you that drawing.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Thanks.
So, Mr. Perez, your vote?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Aye. Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
R15 is awarding a contract for the 2025 summer camp bus services to Beloved Community Charter School for a total amount of $127,600.
Move it.
Second.
On that resolution, Mr. Booker?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Ms. Weimer? Aye. Mr. La Palusa?
Aye.
A couple additional items. The first one is amending resolution number 25-04-16059, which was adopted April 16, 2025, to change the name of the UEZ project from the Bayonne UEZ sidewalk repairs to the UEZ streetscape.
Move it.
Second.
And on that one, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
2 is from the Honorable James M. Davis, appointing Corrado DiVincenzo to the Planning Board as a Class 4 member for the term to expire June 30th, 2026.
Move it.
Second.
On that one, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer.
Aye.
Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And 3 is from the Honorable James M. Davis, fixing the salary range for the title of Chief Registered Environmental Health Specialist, Public Health. That's it.
Move it.
Second.
And on that one, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez. Aye. Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
And I have one that is not on your agenda. It is authorizing the mayor to establish and appoint a brownfield development area steering committee and authorizing the mayor and any other qualified municipal official to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the DEP on behalf of the city of Bayonne and/or the steering committee as necessary. And a second.
Joe, would you provide a little,
So just like other committees that we have, like Planning Board, Historical Commission, the Environmental Commission, Brownfield Development, there's state funding out there, so this will help, direct any of the grants that we're going to apply. So we awarded a contract to Montrose, who's our environmental grant consultant on those matters, and they specialize in brownfield development, which basically is highly contaminated oil sites, chemical sites, and to get the grant money to help clean that up. So this helps put a committee together, for us to start cleaning up environmentally contaminated properties throughout town.
excellent, if there was an area, for example, someone rose the issue that there is a contaminated area that's been not addressed, would this be the committee that we would then send those complaints
Well,
to?
remember, part of the DEP process with remedial action permits, that is a DEP mandated, thing. So that's not a city action for this. This is just the state identifies the sites, they qualify them as a brownfield, and then from there, they will then go ahead and then they set up a fund that we can now go apply and get grant money from, so. Okay?
So on Ad 4, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
Aye.
I have nothing else.
So just on the R13 with the withdrawn one, for the amended financial agreement, the lawyers on that for the developer haven't gotten back to us on the city with the finalized document. So quite frankly, it's going to come up next month as an ordinance to separate the two. But this is an agreement that we've had in front of the council, in front of you guys, multiple times. Now that the lender of this property took over and is the developer, it's easier to have the properties separated instead of having two properties with one financial agreement, have each of the properties have their own separate ones, but the terms are going to stay the same. So, but
Do you
it
have
w-
any other additional items as well?
no, that was the only one on with the
Okay.
drawing for the. I know we talked about potentially having the ferry on. We're still actively reviewing the proposals to make sure that the city gets the best operator for that. We had two submittals for that of Sea Streak and New York Waterway. So we're evaluating right now from an engineering standpoint on what the services would require for the ferry dock, along with the property that we're acquiring from the Port Authority, along with some of the the parking requirements needed, pavement, so financial terms of it, and make sure that we have the best operation for the city. So those were the two ones there. And then I know there was one about Bayonne Dry Dock that I asked for the reserved spot on that. They did not, get to us in a timely manner, the application, so we're going to hold off for another month on that. But they already submitted that to Senator Booker's office on that. We just want to make sure that the city has no, financial strings, reliable for, giving them the grant money, or that money, even if we don't get the grant. So we're still negotiating that out. Again, apologize for the rush of it, but, it came from them as a rush, but this is, the overall project.
I appreciate the explanation, because
Yeah.
I was wondering why they weren't on.
Yeah, the overall, project for the Bayonne Dry Dock of dredging, in front of their gate, is still going to be an asset to the city, but we just want to make sure that we have everything vetted and not rushing this.
Yes. And we look forward to hearing, but we want to make sure we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's on the ferry contract as well.
Yes, yeah, the ferry operators, like I said, they were lengthy, 100-plus page proposals of it that go into, details of ridership, financial models, garage parking, construction costs for it. So we want to make sure that we have the best operator to, again, this is a good endeavor for the city. It's, going to be a big game changer. I know we're trying to get that done for, this month, unfortunately, because we're doing this under the local redevelopment law, not under public contracting. We want to make sure that, for the redevelopment agreement that's going to be put in front of the council, it's done proper. But like I said, we had Sea Streak and New York Waterway. They're the two big operators, in New York Harbor, and want to make sure we get that access to New York City.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And on the motion to adjourn, Mr. Booker. Aye. Mr. Carroll. Aye. Mr. Perez. Aye. Ms. Weimer. Aye. Mr. La Palusa.
I want to wish everybody that, in the sound of our voice, a very happy Memorial Day. And with that, I vote aye.